Okay, question number 2 is starts off with a hypothesis question, hypothesis testing on the product moment correlation coefficient. This, if you remember, is chapter 1 in the year 2 textbook. It's dead straightforward, but it's really easy to forget how to do because of how easy it is. So we've got a few numbers to pay attention to. We've got 8 weeks, so n is 8. We've got a 5% significance level, and we're testing whether the temperature is negative. So it always says by stating your hypothesis clearly. Stating your hypothesis clearly always gets you a mark or 2. So our null hypothesis is that R is 0, and our alternative hypothesis is that R is negative, so R is less than 0. And we need to find the critical values or the critical region to see if there's any evidence that there is actually a correlation after 8 weeks, getting a correlation coefficient of negative 0.915. So there is a table that we have to look up. This table is in the formula booklet that you'll get for your exam. You've got to use it to be able to answer this question. I've taken, it's on page 37 of your formula booklet if you want to make a note of it. This is what you always do if you are doing a hypothesis testing on the PMCC. So I've got the table here. If I just scroll down a little bit, you'll be able to see a bit more of it. And what we're looking for is what we've got. We've got a sample size of 8. So we're looking in this row, and we have a critical value or a significance level of 5%, so 0.05. So the critical region is less than 0. Well, it's negative. This will be plus or minus depending on whether we've got whether we're testing for positive or negative correlation. So it's less than negative 0.6215. So anything less than negative 0.6215, that is classed as significant. So that we do have significance in our scenario, because we've got a value of negative 0.915. So what we'll say is that because negative 0.915 is smaller than negative 0.6215, then there is evidence to suggest that there is negative correlation. Okay, that's all we have to do. That's why it's only a 3 marker. So we would reject the null hypothesis and accept the alternative. Question part B of question 2 asks us to state a reason for this correlation. So Tess and her amount of sales, her weekly sales figures compared to the average temperature. So we have to say why we think when there are high temperatures her sales will be less. Now she lives in a seaside town. Her shop is in a seaside town. So the possible reason for the correlation is that when the weather is hot, people aren't going to go shopping, they're going to go to the seaside instead. So that's all we needed to write for part B. Part C says, state with a reason. So Tessa wants to use a linear regression model. So she thinks that the points lie on a straight line. And we want to decide whether there is any reason to suggest that that's true. And there is, because this number is close to -1. This value is for product moment correlation coefficient is for linear data. So since that is close to -1, it is consistent. Otherwise, we would have a smaller value. Part D asks us which one is the explanatory variable. Explanatory variable is the independent variable. So we're wondering whether the temperature depends on the weekly sales figures or the weekly sales figures depend on the temperature. And it's the weekly sales figures depending on the temperature. So the explanatory variable is the temperature, and you had to give a reason to get the mark for this. Since the weekly sales figures depend on the temperature. Okay, and for part E, it says it's given us the regression line now that Tessa has calculated, and it asks us to interpret the gradient. So what does this minus 171t represent? So that represents the loss in sales in pounds per 1 degree increase in temperature. So as the temperature increases by 1 degree, she will lose approximately £171 in sales.